On the morning of June 17, 2025, a phone call was placed from a Brooklyn loft apartment, one that would soon make headlines across the country. Inside, emergency responders found a scene that no one expected. Celebrity chef Anne Burrell, 55 years old, unresponsive in her bathroom, slumped against the tile floor of her shower. Dozens of prescription pill bottles were scattered around her, the water still running. Her husband, Stuart Claxton, had found her just minutes earlier. Paramedics arrived within 5 minutes of his 911 call. Despite immediate life-saving efforts, Anne was pronounced dead at the scene. The preliminary cause listed by the New York Fire Department, cardiac arrest. But the unusual circumstances, the quantity of pills, their placement, the lack of external injuries, sparked questions no one was ready to answer. Anne Burrell, the woman whose infectious personality, spiky platinum hair, and bold cooking style lit up screens for over 2 decades, was gone. And her passing was anything but simple. Her death became not just a devastating loss for fans in the culinary world, it opened a door into a life filled with unresolved business, millions of dollars in assets, charitable projects, and a legacy that now finds itself at a crossroads. It was just before 8 a.m. on June 17, 2025, when a 911 call placed from a converted loft in Brooklyn sent first responders racing through city streets. What they found inside was something none of them were prepared for. Anne Burrell, the fierce, funny, and fire-hearted celebrity chef, known for transforming hopeless home cooks into kitchen warriors, was found motionless in her shower, the water still running, a half-dozen prescription bottles lying open around her. The scene was chillingly quiet. No forced entry, no visible injuries. Just the disarray of a woman who, less than 48 hours earlier, had been taping a promo segment for a Food Network summer special. It was her husband, Stuart Claxton, who made the discovery. He reportedly woke up alone that morning and assumed Anne had begun her day early, as she often did. But the sound of the shower running for nearly an hour triggered concern. When he opened the bathroom door, he found her slumped on the floor, unresponsive, eyes closed, limbs slack. Emergency medical technicians arrived within 5 minutes of his call. They attempted CPR, oxygen therapy, and advanced cardiac life support measures, but by 8:06 a.m., Anne was officially pronounced dead. The initial report issued by the New York City Fire Department listed the preliminary cause as cardiac arrest. However, the presence of multiple medications, including antidepressants, anti-inflammatories, and a sedative, has complicated that conclusion. According to a statement later given by FDNY officials, there were no immediate signs of trauma. The scene was consistent with a medical episode, though toxicology will determine the full circumstances. As per protocol in cases involving public figures, a full autopsy was initiated the same afternoon by the New York City Office of Chief Medical Examiner. Results are still pending, but sources close to the investigation have confirmed that pill residue found in the bathroom and the dosage quantities remaining in each bottle are key areas of inquiry. Privately, family members have admitted that Anne had been deeply tired in recent months. Friends observed she'd lost weight, was seen less frequently at culinary events, and had turned down at least 2 public appearances in the spring. A close friend and colleague, who asked not to be named, revealed that Anne had been managing what she called a perfect storm of pressures. An aggressive filming schedule, health fluctuations, and the demands of her upcoming cookbook deadline. Still, to many, especially her fans, her death seemed unfathomably sudden. Anne had always exuded strength, humor, and vitality. Her on-screen presence was all boldness and laughter. But perhaps, as with so many public figures, what we saw in the spotlight told only half the story. And now, with her passing, the other half is beginning to surface. In the wake of Anne Burrell's passing, grief wasn't the only thing her family had to confront. Within days, legal advisors, business managers, and media outlets turned their focus to a complex and sprawling estate, one that stretched far beyond what most fans imagined. What Anne left behind was more than a personal fortune. It was an active enterprise built from 2 decades of relentless effort, televised charm, and strategic expansion. Now that empire sits in the hands of the very people who loved her most, and they must figure out how to preserve it without her. At the center of the estate is Anne's Brooklyn loft, the same apartment where she spent her final hours. Purchased in 2019 for just over $1.5 million, the property had since doubled in value. But it wasn't just a home, it was a production hub. Part test kitchen, part film studio, the loft was equipped with commercial-grade appliances, overhead lighting rigs, and shelving lined with cookware bearing her signature. It was also where many of her online classes and brand-sponsored digital series were filmed. That alone made the property more than sentimental. It's a business asset, one with real income potential and tax implications. Her financial portfolio extended far beyond real estate. According to entertainment industry insiders, Anne's royalty streams from Food Network and partner platforms are projected to generate ongoing revenue for the next 7 to 10 years. Shows like Worst Cooks in America, Secrets of a Restaurant Chef, and her guest roles across various culinary series are in continuous syndication across both cable and streaming services. Each rebroadcast, each international deal, means more dollars flowing into the estate and more decisions that must be made about how those dollars are used. Then there are the cookbook rights. Her first two titles, Cook Like a Rock Star and Own Your Kitchen, became instant bestsellers, collectively selling over 750,000 copies worldwide. But what few knew is that Anne was actively developing a third cookbook at the time of her death, focused on comfort food from her childhood, fused with modern culinary science. That manuscript, now in partial form, sits in the hands of her editors, uncertain whether it will ever see the light of day. The question now, should it be published posthumously? And if so, who finishes it? Overshadowing all of this is the issue of unfinished business. Brand deals were mid-negotiation. A signature line of cookware, reportedly in development with a major national retailer, was expected to launch later in 2025. Contracts had been signed. Samples were being tested. The timing of her death has frozen that process in place, and according to close business associates, some of those agreements include key person termination clauses, which allow companies to back out if a central figure, Anne in this case, is no longer present. And yet, the real weight isn't just in what's left to be sorted, it's in what must now be protected. Anne's image, her voice, her reputation, and most importantly, the values she spent her life promoting. Those are assets too. In the world of celebrity estates, these are called personality rights, and they can become as legally complicated as any real property. How her name is used, who profits from her likeness, and whether future projects are launched under her brand. These are decisions her family and legal team must now make with care, and often under public scrutiny. Stuart Claxton, now acting as co-executor alongside a long-trusted business advisor, has already begun the enormous task of organizing legal documents, transferring titles, and consulting with attorneys on Anne's outstanding obligations. According to sources close to the estate, Anne left behind a living will, updated in 2023, which includes provisions for charitable work, educational funding, and specific guidelines on how her legacy should be preserved. But turning those wishes into action will be neither quick nor simple. Because Anne's estate isn't just about managing money, it's about managing meaning. And that, perhaps more than any dollar amount, is the greatest burden of all. In the days that followed Anne Burrell's death, a second layer of responsibility began to unfold. One that few outsiders fully understand, but one that instantly shifted the weight of an entire legacy onto a single man, Stuart Claxton. As Anne's husband and primary next of kin, Stuart has not only inherited the personal grief of losing a life partner, but also the immense legal and emotional burden of becoming the executor of her estate. Their marriage, which began in a quiet October ceremony in 2021, had always seemed grounded in mutual respect and shared simplicity. Friends described Stuart as the calm to Anne's chaos, a soft-spoken, grounded presence who often worked from home and stayed out of the spotlight. But now, Stuart finds himself in the center of a public maelstrom, tasked with stewarding Anne's wishes while navigating the pressure that comes with managing a brand adored by millions. Legally, Stuart is not navigating this alone. Anne's estate plan, revised in 2023, appointed a co-executor, a financial advisor who had worked with Anne since the early days of Secrets of a Restaurant Chef. Together they are responsible for overseeing probate proceedings, reviewing intellectual property agreements, ensuring continued disbursement of royalties, and facilitating charitable obligations Anne had committed to in her final years. However, the transition hasn't been seamless. Public reaction to Stewart's role has been intensely divided. On social media, some fans have rallied behind him, offering sympathy and encouraging him to carry Anne's torch. Others, however, have voiced skepticism, questioning the rapid legal filings, the delayed public statement, and his limited media presence. One viral post speculated without evidence that Stewart had too much to gain, fueling conspiracy theories that gained traction across platforms like Reddit and TikTok. Legal experts have since emphasized that Stewart's role as executor is standard for a surviving spouse and was clearly outlined in Anne's legally filed will. Still, in the court of public opinion, the absence of transparency often breeds suspicion. Eventually, Stewart broke his silence with a statement delivered through Anne's publicist. Anne's love was not only visible on screen, it was the heartbeat of our home. I am shattered by this loss, but I will honor her memory with the care and clarity she showed in every part of her life. Her work was her passion. Her legacy is now my duty. Since then, he has remained mostly out of sight. No interviews, no press tours, no tributes beyond the initial statement. Whether out of grief or discretion, the silence has only amplified the scrutiny. Yet those closest to Anne say the dynamic between them was real, affectionate, and remarkably private for a couple living in the limelight. As probate proceedings continue, Stewart and the legal team will be responsible not just for distributing Anne's assets, but for deciding which projects move forward, which business ventures are shut down, and how Anne's public image is used in future campaigns. Every decision, from the release of her unfinished cookbook to the licensing of her cooking tutorials, must now pass through Stewart's desk. And in this intersection between private grief and public legacy, one truth becomes clear. Preserving Anne's life's work will require more than paperwork. It will require integrity, wisdom, and a steady hand, qualities that those who knew Stewart believe he possesses. Anne was born in 1969 in Cazenovia, New York, a quiet town that rarely produces TV stars. She grew up in a tight-knit family, raised by her mother Marlene, a schoolteacher, and father James, an accountant. From a young age, Anne was the loudest voice in the room, spirited, unfiltered, and insatiably curious. She became fascinated with cooking as a child, watching PBS cooking shows after school and experimenting with recipes she saw Julia Child prepare. By the time she was a teenager, she was hosting dinner parties for her family using whatever ingredients she could find in the fridge. But before choosing culinary school, Anne took another path. She graduated from Canisius College in Buffalo with a degree in communications. It wasn't until after graduation that she decided to take a leap and retrain entirely at the Culinary Institute of America, graduating in 1996. Anne once said, "I didn't fall into cooking. I ran toward it, full speed, with my hair on fire." After graduation, she headed to Italy, a rare move at the time. She worked in a 30-seat Michelin-starred restaurant, La Bottega del 30, where she cooked 16-hour shifts and prepped everything from scratch. Her time in Italy defined her love of simple but soulful food. Returning to New York, Anne spent years sharpening her skills under Lidia Bastianich, eventually becoming executive chef at Centro Vinoteca in Manhattan, her first time managing a full kitchen, menu, and staff. Anne's TV break came in 2005 when she appeared on Iron Chef America. Her energy, her voice, her humor, she popped off the screen. In 2008, she was given her own show, Secrets of a Restaurant Chef, which ran for 9 seasons and became a cornerstone of Food Network's golden era. But her legacy was cemented by Worst Cooks in America. From 2010 until her death in 2025, Anne led the show with iron confidence and genuine compassion. She didn't just scold bad cooks, she inspired them. And in doing so, inspired millions watching at home. Anne also became a fan favorite on Chopped All-Stars, which she won in 2015, Chef Wanted, The Best Thing I Ever Ate, Food Network star, House of Knives, her final show. She judged cooking competitions, led cruises, hosted fundraisers, and even paraded on Food Network's Macy's Thanksgiving Day float. Beyond the camera, Anne served on the boards of the Juvenile Diabetes Research Foundation, Garden of Dreams Foundation, and City Harvest. She volunteered to teach kids in underserved areas and worked with nursing homes to improve meal quality. Her personal life wasn't without struggle. Her restaurant venture in 2017, Phil and Anne's Good Time Lounge, closed within 2 years. She called it heartbreaking, but insisted it made her stronger. Her 2012 engagement to chef Corin Grieveson was heavily publicized. Anne later found lasting love with Stuart Claxton, whom she married in 2021. She described their relationship as equal parts quiet and fire, a sanctuary from the demands of fame. As news of Anne's death spread, the culinary world responded. Carla Hall, Artie Sequeira, Sonny Anderson, Buddy Valastro, Aaron Sanchez, and dozens of celebrity chefs and Food Network alumni posted emotional tributes. Fans started the hashtags Remember Anne, Anne Burrell Inspires, and Spiky Hair Strong, sharing their favorite recipes, quotes, and moments from her shows. Food Network began rebroadcasting her classics and announced it would be launching the Anne Burrell Culinary Inspiration Award, an annual honor for chefs who combine excellence with generosity. Anne's family has confirmed plans to launch the Anne Burrell Foundation, focusing on scholarships for women in culinary arts, mental health advocacy, and community kitchen support. Anne Burrell's death left a silence in the culinary world, but her legacy speaks volumes. Through her laughter, her courage, and her unwillingness to be anyone but herself, she left us more than recipes. She left us lessons in life. She reminded us that it's okay to fail, as long as you keep cooking. That style is substance when it comes from the heart, and that food at its best isn't just nourishment, it's connection. If Anne ever inspired you, made you laugh, or helped you conquer the fear of boiling water, leave a comment below. Share your story. Let the world know how deep her reach truly was. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell. This is how we keep her legacy alive. Because even though Anne has left the kitchen, her flame will never go out.